You're listening to New Book Tuesday on CPL Radio, a show and podcast that covers just what the title says, new books that have dropped here at the Cedarburg Public Library. Dropped, aren't I cool? They come in a box from a place called Baker & Taylor, for those of you who really want to know the nuts and bolts. And this is for librarians who read when we're not at work, and then we talk to you about it. So that's kind of cool. Let's go around and introduce everybody, and I'll start first. I'm Jeff Messerman. I am upstairs. They call me Adult Services Librarian until they decide otherwise. Next.
I'm Gemma Lavender. I work upstairs with Jeff, and I'm in Adult Services too.
I'm Casey St. Clair. I am downstairs in the Children's Department.
And I'm Heidi Griffin, and I am also downstairs in the Children's Department.
All right. We are all identified for you. We're going to start with Gemma today, and away she goes.
Well, this book that I brought,
We are a library. No, that's okay. Warts and all.
Okay. Is Learned by Heart by Emma Donoghue. She was a new author to me, but she's been around a while and had to high acclaim. This is a book that she... they published in August 2023, so it is her newest one. Her most famous one, I think, probably because of the film associated with it, was Room, which I did actually read after I read this, even though I watched the film a while ago, was just because I kind of wanted to compare and contrast and also see if the book was as good as the film was and see where she kind of went with that compared to this book. This book, however, is very different from Room, apart from the fact that you do get the sense that it is fairly enclosed because it's set in a 19th century girls' boarding school in York, England. And you do get a very sense, I've been to York, and you do get a sense of the town and the city, but it is very much that privileged girls' school. It's got two main characters, and it is based on true story or true lives. I don't know how much she's fictionalized the story because it is a lot of flight of imagination. However, she's taken a lot from the diaries of one of them, and I think maybe the letters of another, and sort of made a story out of what she thinks might have happened in that boarding school between these two girls. So it's a love story, and it's a lesbian love story of Anne Lister, who is a very tomboyish Yorkshire lass who grew up in a farm with her brothers, and she goes to the school. She's sort of like the new girl in the school. And then her friend, who they get, they're basically roommates in the same funny little dorm room on the top of the building, or that's what it seems like, which they call the Slope. And her roommate is Eliza Rain, and she has a very interesting past because she is originally from India, and she's a biracial orphaned heiress. So she's got money, and she moves to England sometime around like age 5 with her sister, and her sister's in the book, but they don't really talk to each other. And part of the interesting thing about both those girls is that they're adapting to being, biracial young women in the 1800s in England, which is obviously a very difficult thing. And their sisterhood is kind of fractured by that. They also are living with their aunts and uncle, or maybe sort of they're not actually related. I think they're kind of friends of the family. But they send them to this boarding school. The whole world of the boarding school is fantastically depicted. It's a very moving and beautifully depicted setting, and the relationship between all the girls, all the different characters of the schoolmates is beautifully done. You really get a sense of the characters and the difficulties that each one has. As I say, Anne Lister comes to the school, and she's this very strong-willed, tomboyish young woman who's incredibly intelligent and likes to speak her mind, And everyone, I think, is sort of attracted to that, but she gets in trouble with the teachers for doing that. But Eliza is fascinated by her, and equally, Anne is fascinated by this, what she seems is sort of like a exotic goddess, because from what you feel or read in the words is that Eliza is extremely beautiful, and not so much in that's what, but more attractive in the way her personality is and the way she commands the room. And so these two get together in terms of their roommates, and they get closer and closer. And it's just a stunning portrayal of what it might have been like to be these characters in that situation, which was very fraught with lots of taboos in so many different ways. The sexuality, the gender way, the racial, the fact that they're women, young women, the fact that they want to do more with their lives than just be housewives. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but just, from that point of view, they're really trying to break barriers all around, and they're closeted in this very traditional school. So that's the setting and the story. I won't say too much about what happens because it would spoil it, but there is a lot of heartache and disappointment with how the story goes. And one of the way that happens is that there's the story is set with in what's happening in the school, day-to-day life, and then it fast forwards to when Eliza is 24 and she's writing letters to Anne as a mature woman, and she's in a mental asylum. So it's what happened, and I don't want to say any more than that. But I'm
intrigued.
Yeah, that is the intrigue of the book, of like how, what, when.
Do you think the timing of this book is pretty interesting with just sort of socially what's going on right now, especially for women?
Yes, I think so. I think, although I think it's also timeless in, yes, it is.
Love is love.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I think it's obviously very relevant.
Yeah.
And the author is a Irish author who now lives in Canada. I think she studied in England. Yeah, she studied in England, and it's just a very, I think her obvious travels, her obvious background, her obvious part in that kind of community too is very relevant. It's a timeless piece. It's a book for all ages. It's some of the it's a little racy and.
Yeah.
Another relevant point is the use of boarding schools in content in the setting. For instance, The Holdovers, the movie that came out, and then also Saltburn, I believe, is a boarding school. So I think that is a little bit trendy.
It is,
lately.
And in fact, I'm reading another boarding school one, the St. Ambrose. Is it St. Ambrose School for Girls or something? It titles something like that.
Okay.
But it's another boarding school, so I don't know if I'm being drawn to these boarding school books or if they're just out.
We're sending you away.
The only thing that I didn't like about this book really is the title. I couldn't actually remember it. It's called Learned by Heart, and it just seemed a forgettable title for what the book was about.
Sure. Absolutely. I read Emma Donohue's The Pull of the Stars. I think that's the title of it. Yeah, and that was also set in a hospital that was under a pandemic, and it was a maternity ward actually. So life was exiting and arriving with frightening results. And she's really good at claustrophobic.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And then it
setting,
then it goes claustrophobic in the mind too. So I think it really mirrors that mental internal struggle with what's happening in a closed, confined environment.
She's very good. I did not expect to ever pick up a book like hers, and I was shocked at how readable and kind of obsessively readability. You can't stop. Once you get
it's
down
very page turning, but also she is very, as you say, accessible and easy to read, but with depth.
That's cool.
Just surface.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you, Gemma.
You're welcome.
That is a fantastic.
Read it. It's good.
Ample copies in the system, and at least one or two here. So, let's talk to Casey and see what when she's not playing with her white floofy dogs. What's she reading?
Well, I think we're going to all be on a little bit of a theme this podcast of mental health and women. I read Everyone But Myself, a memoir by Julie Chavez, and on the cover is a woman strewn across an ottoman and a chair, just completely looking deflated and defeated. Can relate sometimes.
Boy.
Yes. This was I would say the writing is okay, but the content is extremely relatable, especially for anyone working in the service industry. It was Teachers Appreciation Day yesterday. And I feel if you have an appreciation day in your profession, you need to reassess your life choices a little bit. Yeah, it's a sign. Hug your people who need appreciation days. Yes. So Julie is a school librarian, relatable in that sense, and she is burnt out. I like this passage. And at the top of that list, saying yes when I truly didn't want to, and even worse, need to do something. That habit led to a tight little cycle. Say yes to a task of some sort. Feel pissed at myself for saying yes. Justify the yes by classifying it as classifying a no as selfish. Feel overwhelmed. Muscle through your obligation because I said yes in the first place. So kind of that feeling of you have a very full plate, and then someone comes along and says, can you do this? And you say yes. And I will say no more to that. No. But
no idea what you're talking about.
No idea what you're talking about.
It's like science fiction. I have never heard of such stuff.
But in her case, she has 2 teenage boys, and people ask her to bake things for the fundraiser, but a bake sale, or say yes to watching someone's dog while they're out of town. And she just gets to a point where she's
still
exhausted.
No idea what you're saying.
Still no idea. I'm looking at Heidi. I'm looking at Gemma.
These foreign concepts that you bring to this show.
Yes. And it culminates in a panic attack in bed one night that she thinks comes out of nowhere. But then as the book progresses, she's like backtracking and figuring out what went wrong. For instance, her gym closed down because there was renovations happening, and that was sort of her release of endorphins. And then she finally admits that she needs help. And I also like this passage as well. The trick about mental health is that when you discover or admit you need support, all the tools you would use to find that support have vanished. You're hopelessly tired, easily confused, fatigued by even the slightest roadblock. What a perfect time to navigate our breezy, welcoming medical system. So she's trying to find a therapist and network, schedule it in her busy day. So all of these things are relatable in my own life. Not to dive too deep, but 5 or 6 years ago, I was in a similar place trying to get help, but you're tired. The system is confusing. You don't know on your medical card what the group number is or what is covered under your plan. So I really recommend this to anyone who has a very full plate, someone who needs...
Or perhaps the loved ones of someone who has a very full plate.
Yes. And her husband is a shining example of what to do to support
good.
someone. So the title is Everyone But Myself, a memoir by Julie Chavez, and I don't think it's getting a lot of hype. Therefore, I really wanted to talk about it today.
I think it's a really good book to highlight before Mother's Day too.
Yes.
Because usually the mums in our lives put themselves at the very bottom of the list. And just the title itself shows that Everyone But Myself, I think, resonates with all parents and with a lot of other people too. But I think it's a bit of
Oh, come on. We give you mothers
Motherly
a day.
syndrome.
What's the problem here? And before I get in any more trouble, we're going to go to break. I will be roundly beaten about the head. And when we come back, we'll do more books here on CPL Radio's New Book Tuesday. Oh, it hurts. Okay, so I got hit 4 times over the break, and we're back on New Book Tuesday. I gotta get some bandages. Here's Heidi.
All right. Well, I'm going to keep on rolling with our theme that we have today. I chose the book Not Quite a Ghost by Anne Ursu. This book is a little spooky, a little serious, but a lot of fun. This story is based on a short story. Maybe some of you have read it, called The Yellow Wallpaper. It was written by Charlotte Perkins Gilman in 1892. And it's also based on Anne Ursu's personal experiences as well. But I kind of want to talk about The Yellow Wallpaper a little bit to kind of give some context to the story. In The Yellow Wallpaper, a woman is struggling with postpartum depression and is prescribed rest by her husband, who is a doctor. It was common for this time period for women to be prescribed rest instead of seeking.
Can I get prescribed rest?
Please. Right?
Sorry, Heidi, continue.
No,
Let me write that up for you.
So women with this nervous depression, as they would title it, were not considered sick, but instead in need of a rest cure. So her husband rents a house out in the country and puts her in the room upstairs, also known as the attic, because it has the most windows and air is the best thing for a woman who needs rest cure. The windows have bars because it was a nursery, so we didn't want small children to fall out the windows at this time. And she feels like the room is closing in on her. She's keeping a diary unbeknownst to her husband because he does not want her to do a thing but breathe fresh air. As she's in there, she begs him to put her in another room downstairs where she can see the roses. But no, they only have one window, so he keeps her in the room upstairs. So the longer she's in this room, she starts looking at the wallpaper. And the wallpaper is an ugly, hideous yellow with an horrid design on it. And the longer she's in there, it starts to change form. And she starts to maybe see some things in the wallpaper. So that's kind of a context to the story. In this story, Not Quite a Ghost, we meet Violet. And Violet is a middle schooler whose family has moved into a new house. And of course, her room ends up being in the attic. She's not really thrilled about being in the attic, but this is the first time she has her own room. So she's pretty excited about having a place to herself. After the first night that Violet spends in her room, she ends up getting sick. And she doesn't get any better. So Violet is struggling with some school relationships. We all know middle school relationships are hard, but she's really struggling with some of her friends. And this illness that she seems to have is not making it any better because her friends think she's lying about it. Her mom is very supportive of her and is very concerned that she's not getting better. So they try to seek out some help. And they're not getting any answers. So it's kind of hard to figure out what's happening with Violet. So Violet begins, of course, spending more time in her room because this illness she has is kind of dilapidating for her. She has problems moving. She's tired. And then she starts staring at her wallpaper, which is also yellow and also has shapes in it. And she begins to wonder if maybe she's not alone in her room. I believe if you were to read this book, I think you should read The Yellow Wallpaper first
Yes.
because
It's a quick read.
It is really quick. It's a great interpretation of the story. Also, the presence of a blended family is done beautifully. And also the navigation of middle school relationships where, I see a lot having 2 kids around that age. So it's relatable for me. And also, it is good at showcasing believing in your own truth. Violet knew something was wrong with her, and she did not sway from her belief. So it's great. And also, reading The Yellow Wallpaper, I was just amazed that at that time in 1892 that this woman was brave enough to write about mental health
situation.
in women.
Yeah.
And I think it's amazing. So read The Yellow Wallpaper and read Not Quite a Ghost.
A lot of connections.
There are, because in my book, The Land by Heart, the 2 characters were in a little attic room called the Slope that was sort of dingy and not, a bit more like a prison and stifling, just like that room. And again, just owning their own truth a little bit more than was accepted in 19th century.
And advocating
So-
for women's health too.
Right.
There are some things that are being studied that really should have been studied a long time ago. To Jeff's point earlier about, buzziness in the news and whatnot.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of mental health stuff in all these books.
They would just kind of poo-poo everything and say, "Oh, it's just another one of those hysterical women." I mean, that's how they would just, and that's incredibly problematic.
Which still happens a lot today.
It does. No, you bet it does.
A lot of, like menopausal symptoms meant to just be like,
Can't you
not
just
real.
get over it? Yeah, exactly.
Well, I like how they kind of tie that into even with a middle schooler because everyone in the book is telling Violet that she's faking it and she's making it up.
Yeah.
And she is, insistent that she's not. And I think that is really important for kids today.
Well, thank you, Heidi. That's fantastic. So here to break the theme and just shatter everything, although maybe not.
We'll find the theme.
Well, I think we can find our way there. All I can say is, guys, I have a terrible problem. Every time I go on vacation, somebody dies. Someone dies.
I saw that in the stacks.
So this is, I guess, would be a cozy mystery. It's relatively cozy. I felt appropriately cozy while I read it.
Or was that your cat sitting?
It could have been the multiple felines across my chair. But this is from Catherine Mack. This is I don't know if she's a debut author, but it's the first book of a proposed series of I guess homicides and mysteries that occur on vacation. So and on the cover, author Ellie Casamano compares it to Knives Out. That's not accurate, I don't think. I think they're just kind of using, plucking out a popular property to tie it in with. But it's great. It's actually terrific. It's light and airy as you'd expect, but there really is more going on here than you would think, especially for a cozy mystery, which can truly be, light and airy to the point of the book is defying gravity. I mean, these are books, like the beekeeper, someone was stealing their honey, and so and a funny gag for cozy mysteries is they should all be subtitled "The Corpse Was Cute," because everything is just really just insufferably cute, and I kind of enjoy that. So the lead character protagonist is named Eleanor Dash. She's a famous writer. She sort of accidentally wrote a true crime book. I won't get into that because it's a little convoluted. But the subject of her true crime book is a guy named Connor. And everyone in her true crime book, who she actually changed the names of, signed off and said, yeah, this is great, go ahead. And she sort of assumed that Connor would just but she didn't really check with Connor too much. And so he has actually decided to blackmail, sue, do whatever he has to do to, and by the way, they actually they were in a relationship at one time too. So he's also her ex. So there's so much going on with Connor and Eleanor. And he's kind of stalking her. So that's going on as well. Because he wants to kind of catch her, maybe doing something he can sue her further.
Run.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
I think we've left Cozy.
Well, that's about it. It really, there's a lot of for a book that is this funny, it's hilarious. There's a lot of dark stuff underneath it. She's really snarky. She breaks the fourth wall all the time. So I saw someone compare this to sort of if anything, it's Knives Out meets Ferris Bueller's Day Off, because she's sort of almost always talking to the camera, so to speak. She's talking to you, the reader, in it's extremely conversational. It's footnoted to death, which is actually really funny and weird and not expected. So yeah, if you're a Cozy fan of just there was a murder at the coffee shop that had a lot of cats, this might not actually work for you, because it's really crazy. I mean, this book is really nuts. Let me give you a sample of the prose. This is chapter 2, the beginning. Someone's trying to kill me, Connor repeats when I don't say anything for longer than is normal for me. Are you joking? I most definitely am not joking. My brain is whirring. I was just thinking about killing him, and someone's beaten me to the punch? Is this God answering my prayers? No, I'm going to hell for even thinking that. And Connor's still here, alive. So my prayers haven't been answered. Not yet. So that's the voice of the character. That actually is one of her lighter moments. She's really snarky. And she frequently reassures the reader that, don't worry, I don't die in this chapter. So
nice.
It's great. It is romantic. There's a romance in there, and it's wild because you don't know if she's an unreliable narrator. Is she actually going to kill him? I mean, she actually does seem frequently a little unbalanced, and but then you realize, oh no, she's just a writer.
This is the setting. The cover looks like it takes place
Italy.
at a vacation.
Yeah, it's an Italian kind of resort, and she's kind of doing. She's vacationing, but she's kind of contractually obligated for another book, and so she's writing, and it's. I mean, there's just so. It's a really busy book. It is. There's so much going on. This I think would be. We're coming up on summer. This seems to me like a phenomenal beach read. So here it is, folks. Check it out and get it covered in sand, and Cirque will love you.
Do not get it. Do not bring this to the beach.
Don't drop it in the lake, please. But there we are. It's so much fun, and I was just surprised. I picked it up thinking, oh, give us a whirl, and I probably won't. I devoured it very quickly. This is a 2-day book for me, so it was that a little obsessive reading it. So it's great. So there we are. Every time I go on vacation, someone dies by Catherine Mack.
Are you speaking personally?
Well, it depends who I vacation with. So there we are. No, I don't vacation. You know me. My gosh, I never.
Then we're all safe.
Everyone's well, exactly. So there we are. That is another episode of New Book Tuesday. Sorry, we've been away for a long time. We had some technical problems. We had life issues. We had library stuff going on. I'd like to think we'll be back next week. Everyone good with that? Are we all going to show up here at 1:30? All right, fantastic. Thank you so much. Leave any comments that you have in the comments section of whatever app you're listening to us on. I'll get them. And obviously stop by the Cedarburg Public Library. Talk to a librarian. Bring home some books. It's why we're here. Bye.